it seems like to me there's a short-term approach, which is what do you do for this coming year, and then there's a longer look at it that doesn't need to take much more than 6 or 8 months to figure it out, but certainly before the second budget of this next governor's term, and that's where you've got to say, okay, we've got to reduce the size of government, we've got to figure out what are the priorities, and at that point you say, okay, like every family and every business, this is what we can afford to do, and this is what we can't. And that's never been done, at least in the last 50 years, I don't think.
Well, I agree with you, and it is going to be a tough process. We're setting ourselves up again, I think, with a number. With the governor, it's up to the governor and his people to set the revenue estimate, and then of course that's what we spend. And in fiscal year 16, our current year, that number was overestimated by $500 million, $500 million, and we're not really doing anything different. We have to take the governor's number on that, and I think we're setting the next governor that walks in for a $300–400 million shortfall.
I don't think you'll get to the end of this calendar year without us suddenly realizing we're coming in way short of what.
You heard it here first.
So special session starts tomorrow. How is everybody going to come together and figure out a solution to this?
You know, we've worked awful hard, and I think at the end of the day, I think everybody will figure out, number one, we have a constitutional obligation to pass this budget, but number two, to continue and leave the uncertainty laying out there for so many people that are directly affected by the budget or the lack of a budget. We'll get together on something. You know, you still have the bunch that says do it all in taxes, the bunch that says do it all in cuts, and you know, Mitch Carmichael and I have been pretty vocal about, you know, bringing a measured, a balanced approach to fixing the shortfall this time, and we'll see where we get to. Hopefully we can get some, hopefully that'll gain some traction and we can get it done.
One of the things, Bill, though, and I noticed that some reporters, and there's not many, but there's one or two, they're trying to create a budget crisis. And we're certainly not in a budget crisis yet. But this, to me, having a debate, a true debate, which is historically, I'm sure, for the last 50 years, we haven't had much of a debate on real budget issues. So to have this and to have different agreements, have disagreements and different ideas, that's great, because that's how you come to the right solution, by vetting all those ideas and tweaking them.
I think so. And, you know, not a budget crisis, but we definitely have a financial crisis. We'll get the budget done, but
right.
But you're right, and you know, and again, back to my run for governor, it's about being able to access so much of the budget that legislatively we can't get at. It hides behind special revenue, and you know, it needs simplified. I'll tell you that. We need
to turn the lights on up there at the Capitol and see what's behind those dark.
Absolutely.
We've got a budget starting tomorrow. There's a special session, and it really looks like, you know, in the old days, this would never, first of all, they wouldn't have taken up right to work and some of these economic changes, so they'd had plenty of time. But the legislature would have ramrod on a one-party system, and tax increases, government would have stayed the same, they would have expanded it maybe, kept more jobs. But now people are saying, you know what, our government might be too big, we got to put the people first. So I don't understand how the people can be looked at as the source of this $270 million shortfall.
Right, and so as you've properly identified the problem, there's a $270 million shortfall. And so the discussion is about, what do you do to close that gap? Do you raise taxes on West Virginians, which is, by the way, what the governors and that administration wants to do. They will be proposing $270 million in new taxes. And I just think, Bray, at the end of the day, we cannot take that money from the taxpayers of West Virginia.
We're in the southern coal fields, there's a depression. John Desk has said it meets the definition of a depression. And in the middle part of the state, we're teetering on a stagnant to declining economy. There is some positive news in the Morgantown-Martinsburg area. But how can you turn to people who are trying to live and trying to feed their families and say, we're going to tax your cell phone? Come on.
Yeah, I just
tax their cigarettes because maybe they don't buy cigarettes. That'd be good for them.
Right. Well, listen, we are not, this Republican legislature is not going to allow the administration to take $300 million, almost $300 million out of the pockets of West Virginia taxpayers. We're going to cut government. We're going to maybe raise a little taxes on cigarettes, and then we're going to take some out of our savings account, and then we're reforming this state to get us on the right path. That's our plan.
Well, Mitch, I hope you all stand tall for a three-way solution to this. It shouldn't be all cuts, and it shouldn't be all taxes, and it certainly shouldn't be all the rainy day fund.
Right. And Bray, I just want to add one other thing. I know the administration is trying to scare people with the fact that we're not going to fund Promise scholarships. We are funding Promise scholarships. We will fund PEIA, and our budget will be balanced.
Yeah, although I would tell you, I'd be the first to say I think the Promise scholarship is a boondoggle for the rich, and it needs to be redirected to the people who really need it. But that's a discussion for another day. Mitch Carmichael, thank you. We'll be right back.